we had a detailed discussion of what are the three modes of material nature, what is their function, how do they actually bind us in this material world. As an introduction, we discussed about the modes in general and the understanding of what are the three modes. And then we saw from the first 9 verses of this chapter, how do the three modes bind the soul, what is the source, and how do they actually affect the living entity. So the general characteristics of the three modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance, we discussed in those first 9 verses. Then we discussed the nature and symptoms of these three modes, how to identify at a given time what is the most predominant mode, because they do constantly compete with each other. So we saw the symptoms of the each mode when especially they are predominant. How does it actually manifest in a person? So we discussed that in the previous week. And this week, we are going to see what is the consequences of the conditioning by the three modes. Earlier, we saw what are the symptoms of the three modes. Now we are seeing, okay, if I choose to exist predominantly in the mode of goodness, what happens? What are the consequences? What if I live my life predominantly in the mode of passion? What are its consequences? How does it actually affect my life? What if I predominantly live my life in the mode of ignorance? What is my quality of life? What is the mindset that I develop? What would be the destination after death? So these are the three things that we are going to discuss for each mode. Externally, how does it manifest in terms of our actions and the results of our actions? Internally, how does it manifest in terms of our mindset? And where does it lead us to post-life destination? What would be the destination after death if we choose to conduct our life predominantly in any one of these three modes? So that is the topic for discussion today. And there are 5 verses in this section, 14 to 18. And the title is Effects of Conditioning by the Three Modes. And the 14th and the 15th verse, they both speak about the post-death or post-life destination in each mode. And the 16th verse speaks of the results of the action when we are conditioned by one of the three modes. And the verse 17 speaks about the immediate effects that is seen in our consciousness, in our mindset. And the 18th verse summarizes by speaking about the post-death destination of the soul. So we will see them in detail. It's only 5 verses, so we'll also get to read the purports, such beautiful purports by Prabhupada. So where the modes are leading us, that is the focus of this particular section. So in the 14th and 15th verse, Krishna will describe that how goodness leads to higher realms, like the heavenly planets. Passion leads to rebirth among active materialists, which is usually on the Earth planet. And ignorance leads to lower forms of life, either in this planet or on a lower planet. In the 16th verse, Krishna speaks about the results of action in each of these three modes, especially the external results. How does it manifest? Actions in goodness yield purity. In passion, they bring misery. And in ignorance, they end in degradation. The immediate effects, or the mindset or the internal result of each of these three modes, is that the goodness produces knowledge, passion usually breeds greed, and ignorance fosters madness and illusion. In the 18th verse, Krishna will discuss how the post-life destination, the direction of the soul's journey within this material world. Goodness elevates upward, passion keeps one on the earthly planetary system, and ignorance drags one to darker realms, that is downward journey. So these are the summary of the 3 verses. Then the natural question is why Krishna is bothering to explain these verses 14 to 18. What is the reason? Basically, Krishna wants us to see not just the color of the rope. That's what we saw in the previous section. We try to understand the nature and the symptoms of each mode. Okay, it's good to actually understand the nature and the color of the rope, but it is also very important to understand where it's leading us. Where is it pulling us to? If we let it influence us, where is it going to take us? That's what is being discussed in this particular section. So Krishna just does not want us to see the color of the rope or the texture of the rope or the quality of the rope, but he is also seeing where is this rope binding us and dragging us to? When we allow it to bind us, where is it going to drag us? We're speaking about this quality. This rope is a higher quality rope. This is a lower quality rope. We are just speaking about the quality of the rope itself. But Krishna is saying, don't just be caught up in the quality of the rope. See where it is dragging you to. So to reveal the consequences of each mode, so that we can actually understand the seriousness of being conditioned by these three modes. After identifying the modes, Krishna now explains where each mode leads both in this life and in the next life. Initially, he explains in the next life in the verses 14, 15 and concludes in the 18 also with that. And in between, he speaks about this life's result in the verses 16 and 17. And also to make the urgency of transcendence real. When we see that passion leads to misery or ignorance leads to degradation or even goodness is temporary, it makes us understand that transcendence is the only shelter. And to make that be very urgent, he needs us to understand the situation within the three modes. And so that once we understand why we must go beyond them, we'll be able to take our efforts in spiritual life urgently and sincerely and seriously, and to connect short-term symptoms to long-term destiny. The earlier sections tells us about what's happening now, what is immediately visible. But this section is telling us where all of this will take, where all of this would eventually take us to. So that's the reason that Krishna is speaking this section. In the verse 14, Krishna is saying that when one dies in the mode of goodness, he attains to the higher planets of the great sages. And the purport Prabhupada speaks about how goodness leads to elevation to higher planets of the sages and the devas. And he also says that how living in sattva at the time of death carries the soul upward toward cleaner, subtler, higher planes of existence. And in the purports, we see how Prabhupada is speaking that goodness is the purest form of material life. It's still material life, it's not transcendent life, but it is the purest that you can get within this world in general, when it is free from passion and ignorance. And death in Saguna, basically a person who conducted their life predominantly in the mode of sattva, goodness, when they die, it leads them to Brahmaloka, Janaloka, or other higher realms like Janaloka and Tapaloka and all of those things. However, the problem is they are still temporary because even the heavenly destinations are within the material bondage. So Prabhupada says, those who die in the mode of goodness are elevated to the planets where great sages or devotees live. However, still it's a temporary situation. One needs to eventually transcend or elevate oneself to the spiritual world. However, it is the most purest form in one sense that one can avail in the material life, that just developing goodness. So there are different kinds of planets for different kinds of living entities based on the different kinds of modes that they are influenced by. So that is the main crux of this particular verse. The purport is one in goodness attains higher planetary systems like Brahmaloka or Janaloka, and they enjoys godly happiness. The word Amalan is significant. It means free from the modes of passion and ignorance. There are impurities in the material world, but the mode of goodness is the purest form of existence in the material world. Though it is slightly affected by mode of passion and ignorance, still it is the most purest one can get without bhakti. There are different kinds of planets for different kinds of living entities. Those who die in the mode of goodness are elevated to the planets by great sages and great devotees. So now that Krishna has spoken about the mode of goodness and how it is elevated to, it elevates one to the higher planetary system, we still see somebody may think, oh, this is all it. This Vedas are prescribing that if I do this yagya, I go to this heavenly planet and live in the planet of Indra and enjoy for thousands and thousands of years. So they think, oh, this is the best thing. The Vedas are also prescribing. I need to take to this. So that's why Prabhupada is saying, no, this is still within the material world. Penthouse is considered more special. People could pay millions of dollars to get one, but still, it's still inside the building. So similarly, even if one goes to the heavenly planet, still within the material bondage. And there are problems. If you read Bhagavatam, you will see even in the heavenly planets, there are problems. Bali Maharaj is attacking and Indra gets deposed. Hiranyakashipu deposes Indra. So in this way, even the heavenly planets are not completely free from miseries. They are relatively better standard of living, for sure. But they are not completely free from miseries of this world. Yes, Mother Indra?
So I'd heard a long time ago in a class that once you're in the heavenly planets, the other thing is that it's hard for one to progress from there because you're enjoying so much. So it's hard to remember Krishna, but it's a little odd to think that way because all the demigods, whenever they approach Krishna, they glorify him. So they immediately know who he is. So I don't know if that's something that happens to them after the situation occurs and they realize, oh yes, or are they always thinking of Krishna in the heavenly planet?
They're surely not always thinking of Krishna. When difficulties come, there is knowledge. Say, for example, if a devotee goes on a retreat, say, for example, I'll go on a vacation to Hawaii for 5 days. They may just want to relax, so they go. They'll continue to chant. However, the main purpose of the visit is more personal relaxation and stuff. So it's the closest I can think of an example. There is devotion service. At the same time, it's not that intense or anything. yeah, it is there, but at the same time there is also some level of enjoyment and relaxation. But here it's on a completely different level. In the heavenly planets, the amount of facility that is available is like millions of times more than the Hawaii. So they could be very much caught up in it and get overwhelmed by the opportunity. So when somebody is constantly surrounded by that level of high level enjoyment, it becomes very easy for them to get covered by it and lose in touch with the real reality of material world, that it's a place of misery. So we may think everything is comfortable and happy. What to speak of being served by thousands of people and enjoying facilities and having a body which is much more conducive for material enjoyment. So they can get overwhelmed. Still, the knowledge is there. So when the reality hits, the knowledge awakens and they go running towards the Supreme Lord. That's why they are considered devotees, but they are considered mixed devotees. That's why Prabhupada is saying in the higher planetary system, the great sages and great devotees live. By their own right, they are great devotees. However, they are also a little bit addicted to or attached to their enjoyment. Hope that makes sense, Madhurendra. Okay. So the next verse is verse 15, which is, when one dies in the mode of passion, one takes birth among those engaged in fruitive activities, and when one dies in the mode of ignorance, one takes birth in the animal kingdom. But some people have the impression that when the soul reaches the platform of human life, it never goes down again. This is incorrect. According to this verse, if one develops the mode of ignorance, after his death, he is degraded to an animal form of life. From there, one has to again elevate himself by an evolutionary process to come again to the human form of life. Therefore, those who are actually serious about human life should take to the mode of goodness and in good association transcend the modes and become situated in Krishna consciousness. This is the aim of human life. Otherwise, there is no guarantee that the human being will again attain to the human status. So Prabhupada is emphasizing how death in passion leads to rebirth among fruitive workers, and death in ignorance leads to birth in the animal kingdom. So our dominant mode sets the next chapter of our story. So passion actually keeps us in the grind of material life, making us run. And ignorance drags us below human level and makes life more based on instincts. If that's what people are wanting to, then they go to that state. So the current dominant mode sets the tone for the future journey. And Prabhupada is saying that how human life is not guaranteed. Just because currently we are in a human form of life, it's not guaranteed that's what we will continue to have despite whatever actions we do. If we choose to act in the mode of ignorance, it can degrade us to animal forms and then go through the evolution through multiple species, and to eventually return to human life would be very slow and uncertain. So that's why Prabhupada is saying the serious human goal is to rise beyond the molds altogether. There is no fun in just remaining in one of them. Eventually, one has to actually transcend all of them, and by taking shelter of Krishna consciousness. Then that's why Prabhupada says there is no guarantee the human being will again attain the human status. There is no surety. It all depends on the kind of modes that we choose. And those who are already actually serious about human life, Prabhupada's statement, should take to the mode of goodness and in good association transcend the modes and become situated in Krishna consciousness. So if we are serious about human life, then we need to conduct our activities, lifestyle in the mode of goodness and have good association. What is good association? Good association is association with people who can actually inspire us to become closer to Krishna. They can inspire us to actually elevate our consciousness and open it up and achieve the full consciousness of Krishna. And in that good association, we can actually transcend the modes and become firmly situated on the platform of Krishna consciousness. So where our modes actually will take us depends on what is our dominant mode. So your dominant mode today could decide your next destination. So our dominant mode in this life could decide our next destination. So we cannot just think, oh, I'm a devotee, so I can live however I want. Rather, we should actively try to see how we can cultivate the mode of goodness. Because the habits that we develop, they can actually create a downward spiral, especially the bad patterns. They don't just stop you, but they rather actually drag you downward. So it is very important that we take care of what are the kind of lifestyle and habits that we are cultivating actively. What do I choose actively when I have the choice? When no one in the world can dictate me what I can do, when I have all the independence, what do I actually choose to do? Is a sign of our current predominant mode. So it's not for others to judge. For our own benefit, if we understand and acknowledge and accept, oh, I'm predominantly in this mode. Now I want to actually elevate my default setting to mode of goodness. Then what do I do? So that honest introspection and acceptance can actually lead us to freedom. Otherwise, the downward spiral of habits and default patterns of thinking and acting in the mode of passion and ignorance can gradually drag us downward. So now that Krishna has explained in these two verses 14 and 15 about the post-life destination of being situated in a particular mode, now Krishna is going to speak about the result of each of these three modes in this life and how it manifests. So translation, the result of pious action is pure and is said to be in the mode of goodness. But action done in the mode of passion results in misery, and action performed in the mode of ignorance results in foolishness. Would anyone like to read the first paragraph of the purport to verse 16?
The result.
Okay, Madharindra can go first, and then I think Purva can read the next paragraph.
The result of pious activities in the mode of goodness is pure. Therefore, the sages who are free from all illusion are situated in happiness. But activities in the mode of passion are simply miserable. Any activity for material happiness is bound to be defeated. If, for example, one wants to have a skyscraper, so many human miseries have to be undergone before a big skyscraper can be built. The financier has to take much trouble to earn a mass of wealth, and those who are slaving to construct the building have to render physical toil. The miseries are there. Thus, Bhagavad Gita says that in any activity performed under the spell of the mode of passion, there is definitely great misery. There may be a little mental happiness, I have this house or this money, but this is not actual happiness.
So, really clarifying that any activity for material happiness is bound to be defeated. Boom. He just does not want. He's just like spoiling the show for us with that one statement. That is such a short statement, but just is so powerful. That any activity for material happiness is bound to be defeated. And he's giving an example how people have to go through a lot of misery for happiness in the mode of passion. As mental happiness, I have this house or I have this money or we achieve certain things. Actually, the world does not bother eventually. We all have life stories and we say it very proudly. You ask any old person, what did they do? They'll have a huge life story and how it was so special, how they achieved this, how they endured for this. It is very hard and it is great that they achieved all those things. However, just that the mental satisfaction of I actually uplifted my family economically and I was a director in this particular club or in this particular institution, I reformed this way and that way. These things actually contribute the quality of life to some level for sure. However, just that alone is not enough to make them happy, because when they retire and when they are not able to do anything more, they relive mentally the past glories of their actions. However, it is not enough to completely fill their hearts, make them feel fulfilled. And we see that many times among the old people. So that can be a lesson for everybody, that it's not just what we achieve in life externally, but what is the state of consciousness we develop through all of that. That's what is going to actually stay with us. And that's what we are, our consciousness. So if we become uplifted, we become a person with an expanded spiritual consciousness, that's much better than just having done externally great things and not internally having developed a spiritual consciousness. So that's why Prabhupada is driving home that point, that it's not enough just possessing some mental happiness of I have a house or I have money, but also the consciousness needs to be developed. So actions in goodness yield purity, actions in passion yield misery. That's what Prabhupada has explained, just we read. And actions in ignorance yield foolishness and harm. So modes that don't just affect the future, they actually stamp their consequences onto every action, even right now when we live. It's not that post-life I'll go to hell, so let me just enjoy in mode of ignorance. Who cares? Who do even knows that there is an afterlife? I'll just enjoy life in mode of ignorance. Somebody can have that logic. Krishna is saying, no, it's not like that. Even in this world, living in mode of ignorance will lead to misery and foolishness and harm and illusion. So even in this world, the quality of life is going to be quite bad. What to speak of next? So one may say, I don't believe in next life. Still, they would have to actually develop mode of goodness for their own benefit to experience a good quality of life now, even now. So mode just don't affect the future. They also affect the present. So our current modes are a result of our past. They affect our present and they decide our future. And in the purport, Prabhupada just spoke about how goodness brings clarity and peace, and passions, the projects undertaken under passion, like skyscrapers, are full of misery for everyone involved. And then Prabhupada will continue to speak about the mode of ignorance. Purva, would you like to read as far as the mode of ignorance is concerned?
Yes, Prabhupada. As far as the mode of ignorance is concerned, the performer is without knowledge, and therefore all his activities result in present misery. And afterwards, he will go on toward animal life. Animal life is always miserable. Although under the spell of the illusory energy is Maya, the animals do not understand this. Slaughtering poor animals is also due to the mode of ignorance. The animal killers do not know that in the future, the animal will have a body suitable to kill them. That is the law of nature. In human society, if one kills a man, he has to be hanged. That is the law of the state. Because of ignorance, people do not perceive that there is a complete state controlled by the Supreme Lord. Every living creature is the son of the Supreme Lord, and he does not tolerate even an ant's being killed. One has to pay for it. So indulge in animal killing for the taste of the tongue is the grossest kind of ignorance. A human being has no
we can pause there, Purva. Thank you. Prabhupada is going to continue in the same vein, that how killing of animals is bad, especially killing of cows is considered a gross type of ignorance. And also he will speak about how spiritual culture is to value brahmanas, who are the symbol of spiritual education, and cows, which are the symbol of valuable food. And then Prabhupada will also continue that how in modern society, human society, spiritual knowledge is neglected and cow killing is encouraged. He says it is to be understood that human society is advancing in the wrong direction and is clearing the path to its own condemnation. A civilization which guides the citizens to become animals in their next lives is certainly not a human civilization. Prabhupada says that the present human civilization is, of course, grossly misled by the mode of passion and ignorance. It's a very dangerous age, and all nations should take care to provide the easiest process, Krishna consciousness, to save humanity from the greatest danger. And I really appreciated the word that Prabhupada wrote, that civilization which drives its citizens to become animals in the next life is not a proper civilization. And here we see that how ignorance leads to misery, cruelty like slaughter, and future degradation. And Prabhupada says that modern society is largely driven by these modes of passion and ignorance. And some of the statements that is noteworthy here is any activity for material happiness is bound to be defeated. And the present human civilization, grossly misled by the modes of passion and ignorance, is a very dangerous age. And every country should actually bother to provide their citizens with the process of Krishna consciousness to save them from the greatest danger of gliding towards animal life in the future lives. And a civilization which guides the citizens to become animals in their next lives is certainly not a human civilization. And there is always a hidden price tag for all our actions. Like recently, I was in a welcome week for NYU, and there were tables that the different clubs could put, and the Spiritual Life Club had a table, and I was there to explain people what it is. And there were a lot of gifts. Every table is filled with tote bags and candies and all kinds of pens and notebooks, and a lot of gifts that each table actually display. And a lot of the students and the guests, they are very excited about the tote bags. They collect tote bags on different tables, and it's it's very natural. Everybody feels very excited about the tote bags. Oh, I'm not sure if I paused my screen. I hope you guys were able to see this. And I remember there was another person with me on the table, and one of the student asked, "Can I have this tote bag?" And they were very thankful, and they moved and they walked ahead. And he said, "Oh, don't worry, it's not free. You have already paid for it through your tuition." So it's the money from the students' tuition fee that all these other facilities are being arranged. All the grand welcome week festivities and the halls, the decoration and the photo booths and the free tote bags, everything has already been paid by them. So nothing is free in this world. So every action of ours has a hidden price tag. So every mode delivers a different reward, and every action has a hidden price. So some you wouldn't want to pay for actually. When we do those things, we don't realize. I recently was seeing somebody just was evading fares on the subway, and I think it's their bad luck or whatever you call. And the police was there, and they immediately came and dragged this person. Thousands of other people do. I know in New York City, like fare evasion is like such a serious thing. Hundreds and hundreds of people do it on a daily basis. But this person just jumped and then literally landed towards a police officer. And okay, they just immediately took the person. A lot of times people stand there and they don't get arrested. It all depends who you are. If you are like easy to be handled, then the police actually comes to take you. If they think you're going to give them a hard time, they just prefer their safety. They don't care about the fares. So there is always a hidden cost for comfort, because we chase pleasures. We become so comfortable in any one of these modes. Just even a mode of ignorance life becomes a very comfortable thing for that person. Sleeping late, waking late, eating anything, Just ask any student what is their weekend. Either it's deeply in the mode of passion or in the mode of ignorance. One day they would go for partying all night, and the next day they'll be sleeping all day. Lunchtime is like some restaurants, their brunch time is 3 p.m. I'm like, who in the world takes brunch at 3? Basically, because people don't wake up until 2 p.m. They take a shower, or even without a shower, they just go to the next nearby restaurant and grab a brunch ball. And that's why the restaurant opens on a Sunday, like 3 p.m. They start their brunch ball. So chasing pleasures often costs more than it gives. So there is always a hidden cost for comfort in the mode of passion and in the mode of ignorance. So we have to choose, do I really want to pay that price? And it's not whether you would like to or not. We will all pay the price. It's not whether I like to or not. There is no fair evasion in the modes of material nature. It's not like the New York City subway system. So when we actually choose to enjoy in a particular mode, we pay the price. There is no way that we can evade it. And verse 17, from the mode of goodness, real knowledge develops. From the mode of passion, greed develops. From the mode of ignorance, develop foolishness, madness, and illusion. So Krishna spoke in the 14th and the 15th verse, the effect of the three modes on our post-death destination. In the 16th verse, he spoke about the effect of the modes in terms of the results that we will experience in this life externally. But now in this verse 17, he is speaking about the effect of the modes on our mindset. Who do we become internally as a person by the effect of these three modes? From goodness comes knowledge. Basically, you become a person with clarity and wisdom. From passion comes greed. So when a person develops passion, they become greedy. And the side effect of greed is that they are always dissatisfied. That means dissatisfaction leads to a lack of peace and happiness. So it's all a byproduct of that. So passion just develops intense greed. However much you give, it's never enough for this person. And that leads to dissatisfaction and unhappiness. From ignorance arises delusion and madness. Basically, people become reckless, and to the extent of being called as stupid. Like sometimes you don't understand why would people do such things and get into trouble, but they are reckless because they are being influenced by the mode of ignorance. They think it's not a problem. And modes instantly shape perception and decision making. They just don't shape your future destination or the external reactions, the results that you get. They instantly shape perception and decision making. They affect the way we make decisions. That's why different people choose different decisions in a given situation. They react differently because of the modes that they have cultivated. So they shape perception and decision making. Mental weather, what kind of modes are internally we are choosing? The mental weather colors every choice that we make. So that's why it's very important. And this verse is speaking about the mindset and the ability to make decisions. How does it affect our internal state of consciousness? And the purpose, since the present civilization is not very congenial to the living entities, Krishna consciousness is recommended. Through Krishna consciousness, society will develop the mode of goodness. When the mode of goodness is developed, people will see things as they are. In the mode of ignorance, people are just like animals and cannot see things clearly. And Prabhupada speaks about that. And he speaks about animal killing and how it can lead to actually becoming the animal in the next life. People have no education in actual knowledge and they become irresponsible. So to stop this irresponsibility, education for developing the mode of goodness of the people in general must be there. So when people actually get educated in the mode of goodness, they become sober, they develop knowledge. Then Prabhupada says people will be happy and prosperous. Even if the majority of the people aren't happy and prosperous, at least if certain percentage of population develops Krishna consciousness and becomes situated in mode of goodness, then there is possibility for peace and prosperity all over the world. Otherwise, if the world is devoted to the modes of passion and ignorance, there can be no peace or prosperity. And we see that all the time. First world countries, economically powerful nations, but they're all embroiled in war and there is no peace. There is always demonstrations and all other kind of political agitations. So there is no peace and prosperity, even if they achieve economic development externally through the modes of passion and ignorance. So in the mode of passion, people become greedy and their hankering for sense enjoyment has no limit. One can see that even if one has enough money and adequate arrangements for sense gratification, there is neither happiness nor peace of mind. Because one is situated in mode of passion, there is always greed for more. So despite having enough, people cannot actually develop happiness or peace of mind. So Prabhupada says that is not possible to have happiness or peace of mind because one is situated in the mode of passion. If one wants happiness at all, his money will not help him. He has to elevate himself to the mode of goodness by practicing Krishna consciousness. That's such a bold statement. It's just by having money, you cannot become happy. You have to come to practice bhakti, and as a byproduct, if you're situated in the mode of goodness, then you can actually become happy, irrespective of the amount of money that one possesses. When one is engaged in the mode of passion, not only is he mentally unhappy, but his profession and occupation are also very troublesome. He has to devise so many plans and schemes to acquire enough money to maintain his status quo. This is all miserable. In the mode of ignorance, people become mad. Being distressed by their circumstances, they take shelter of intoxication, and thus they sink further into ignorance. The future in life is very dark. And I see, unfortunately, so many states, so many countries, so many governments, they actually facilitate people taking shelter of intoxication. Weed is legalized in the New York City. I see some states in India, the government actually runs all the liquor shops and sees the citizens as customers who could be encouraged to buy more liquor on festival days and holidays, so that they can create more profit for the state. And they say, oh, we will use all this money for your benefit. It's like basically killing the citizens and then calling that I'll be using all this money for your benefit. So modes instantly shape perception and decision making. And in this way, we can see how education in sattva is crucial for peace and responsibility. Rajas fuels endless craving and unhappiness, even with wealth. Tamas leads to escapism, intoxication, and destructive habits, and leads to a very dark future. Since the present civilization, as Prabhupada writes, is not very congenial to the living entities, Krishna consciousness is recommended. And this is another statement that Prabhupada says, if one wants happiness at all, his money will not help him. He has to elevate himself to the mode of goodness by practicing Krishna consciousness. So through Krishna consciousness, society will develop the mode of goodness, Prabhupada is saying. We usually think I'll first develop mode of goodness and then I'll practice bhakti. Prabhupada is saying, no, it can be a byproduct. In this age, it's very hard and a long journey to first develop mode of goodness and then take to bhakti. It would hardly happen. It's not easy. So by practicing strictly the Krishna conscious principles, one will naturally become situated in mode of goodness. So whatever the kind of soil, whatever the mode that we are internally cultivating, that soil decides the quality of the crop that is going to grow. So the inner crop depends on the soil of the mode you are in. So what grows in the garden of your mind? What is its quality? Depends on the modes that we cultivate actively. And even with all the wealth, one cannot buy the clarity and wisdom and peace that comes with the mode of goodness. A cluttered mind, cluttered by modes of passion or ignorance, will always stay restless. Despite having all the amount of money and influence, it will stay restless, even with a full bank account. So that's why it's very important to understand that one needs to develop mode of goodness by the practice of Krishna consciousness, and naturally clarity, wisdom, and peace will follow.
Prabhuji, in this process, it is mentioned that in the mode of passion, people become greedy and they hankering for sense enjoyment. But the Kshatriyas are to be in mode of passion.
Yeah, their predominant mode could be passion. However, they are also guided by wisdom. They do have character. And when we become devotees, does not mean our natures will change. They will have the feeling of wanting to provide to others and protecting others. So the passion could be fruit, like what you call, utilized for constructive purposes. Basically, when we say Kshatriyas are predominantly in the mode of passion, what we are saying, their attitude to be protectors, their attitude to be providers. However, it could be purified, and they could actually understand that they are the secondary protectors or the secondary providers under the shelter of Krishna. So they could be purified, and they will still have the inclination of being a Kshatriya, being a king and statesman, but they could be more purified. And that's why we call Parikshit Maharaj or Yudhishthir Maharaj as a Raja Rishi, because they are not just Rajas, they also become purified. That's why they can become Raja Rishis. If they just remain in the mode of passion, then they can abuse that power. But if they can purify, they will still retain the nature of the Kshatriya, but it could be constructively utilized in the service of the people.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Hope that answers. So the last verse thank you. The last verse for this section, verse 18. So those situated in the mode of goodness gradually go upward to the higher planets. Those in the mode of passion live on the earthly planets, and those in the abominable mode of ignorance go down to the hellish worlds. And in this purport, Prabhupada says how the results of actions in the three modes, which are explained in this nature very clearly, that mode of goodness leads to elevation. It takes one to the heavenly planets. But the passion is mixed and usually results in life in this particular earthly planetary system. And in ignorance, one gets dragged down to the lower realms, to hellish planets, or lower forms of life forms within this world. So modes act like escalators. So they can take us to different directions. So we choose which one to take. And once we take, then we are being carried up. And either we go up or we are held in place, or we are pushed down, depending on our choice. So Prabhupada writes that how Sattva leads to higher planets like Brahmaloka and other such. And Rajas keeps one bound to earth with potential rise or fall. And Tamas pulls souls into animal forms or into hellish realms. An opportunity for elevation exists only through Krishna consciousness. So that's why Prabhupada is saying the result of developing ignorance is very risky. The future is very dark. So modes are like escalators. Habits are the clear sign of the influence of the modes on us. So they are like escalators. You don't notice the moment, but eventually you will be taken somewhere. So it's better to be conscious. And the summary for, again, is verse 14 and 15 spoke about the destinations in the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance, post-life destination. Verse 16 spoke about the consequences of actions in the modes, currently, immediately, which is an external effect. And the verse 17 spoke about the mental effects, which is also immediate in this world, in this life, of cultivating a particular mode. And the last verse, 18, again, spoke about the direction of the journey, whether it's upward in the middle planetary system or downward. So the lessons that we could learn from this section is that how the modes determine not just your mode, but your future here and after death. So also death does not erase conditioning. Our next start point is shaped by how we live here. Only transcending all the three modes through the bhakti ensures actually lasting liberation. And we can not choose our next body later. We are actually actively choosing it now by our actions. It's not that after death we choose our body. No, by our actions, we are currently making a choice. Purva?
So the soul, if it goes to the hellish planets, there also it acquires a body, right? Just as in the higher planets?
It could, depending on whether it is in some places like just for punishment or to live there, depends on that.
But even if it were just for punishment, the punishment is not very pleasant. So if the soul cannot be apart or burnt or cannot be destroyed in any way, then how would it be affected by the punishment? Because let's say
the pain is because of the
direct
identification. Because the conditioned soul is thinking, its mental body, it will still have the mental body. So it will be temporarily given a thing which will identify, and when it is punished, and the mind experiences the pain usually. Say, for example, my phone, when my phone actually falls and breaks, I feel if I lose my phone, I feel that intense pain, not just because it is me, it belongs to my identification. If it was someone else's phone, we're like, oh, wow, so sorry you lost your phone. But we may not feel the same way if I lost my personal phone. There is a difference. So the identification causes the pain. So the conditioned soul, especially in the lower planetary systems, will still retain its identification with the mind and ego and intelligence. So because of that, it will continue to suffer as if the soul is being tormented.
But the scriptures mention various kinds of punishments, such as being plunged into fire or like being thrown stones at. So these are more related to the body, right? So if a person,
so they will be temporarily given a body, and when that body is suffering through the mind's attachment, it will think as if it is dying, it is being fried. Like how we all fear death because we think the body is us. So the same feeling will continue to be there in the lower form also.
Okay, thank you. I get it now.
Yeah, I do see hands raised by Ishwari and then Mother Indra.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Ishwari, nice to see you.
Nice to see you. I have two questions, but I'll ask them both and maybe you could answer them.
Yes.
In one. So let's say you have all good intentions to live a sattvic life, but circumstances don't allow you to. And I'll give you an example. Let's say myself, as a child, I never wanted to eat meat. My family's Cuban, so there's a lot of meat eating, but I never wanted to. I used to get these big balls in my mouth, and when my nanny wasn't looking at me, I would give it to my dogs or whatever. It gets hard. They won't feed you anything else because they believe that meat is what's going to make a child healthy. So up until about the age of 11, where I just started to take tomatoes to school and they gave in that I wasn't eating, I really ate meat for many years, beef and chicken and fish. So that's what I mean. Like, even if you have a good intention, but they're not allowing you to, because they don't see it as they see it as a health risk. So that's question number one. And then question number two, we're born in this life as humans and we didn't take an animal form. Does that mean that we were not eating meat or killing animals in the previous life, and now we're given the human form? But then if that is true, why do so many people eat meat that are human?
Can you repeat the second question?
That if we eat and kill animals, the chances are that you're going to be born in an animal body. But if we're all humans right now, does that mean that we were vegetarians or not killing animals in our previous life in the human form? And if that is true, why do so many people eat meat?
Yeah, so let's go. They're very pertinent questions. For the first question, that yes, so many children, based on the circumstances that they were born into, they end up eating. So it's not their active choice. Even sometimes when they don't want, they're being like, because of their circumstances, they're being forced to eat meat. Scriptures usually give broader guidelines. How it gets applied to an individual has more details into it, more details in it. But the general principle is it's going to result in some form of degradation or some form of punishment. How it gets applied for each individual could be different, because karma is not a very black and white thing. All these other particular circumstances that you're saying, that will all be taken into account. However, when you have all the freedom and the choice and the information, what do we choose? That surely matters. And especially once a person takes to Krishna consciousness and or takes to a spiritual practice and cultivates their connection with God, these minor, then it becomes a very minor thing for to be like erased. Those reactions may not actually hold us down. The mind could be purified of its effect, especially through the chanting of the holy name. So when we have all the freedom in the world and we know the information and we have the choices, ability to make right choices, what do we do is what we are mainly will be held accountable for. And with the second thing, if actually people currently are in human forms, that means they did something, they acted properly in the past life. That's why they're having this opportunity to be in the human form. Why are they now choosing to actually eat meat, especially prevalently? And that's why Prabhupada is saying the leaders are responsible because they create conditions like that. A passion easily can lead to mode of ignorance, because passion leads to greed. And people, for the sake of greed, they can actually change the cultures in various ways. And then out of greed, they can start mixing animal fat and the remnants and all kinds of things into all other kinds of foodstuffs. So just the greed can lead to so much of killing. And a lot of people knowingly, unknowingly start becoming addicted, and they become dulled because there is lack of spiritual education. And today, even though there is so much information about how bad it is ecologically or like spiritually, health wise, still people choose to also eat. So just because we have gotten a human life does not guarantee that we will just be in the mode of goodness or passion. There is all the danger of being contaminated by the lower modes, because we are influenceable by the circumstances. So to constantly make the right choice is not a very easy thing. So that's why Prabhupada is saying, just because currently I'm in the mode of goodness or I'm in human life, so I won't degrade is not a choice, is not a thing. We could be degraded based on the choices currently we are making. We can blame it on others, the overall culture in a particular society or the economy or the politicians. However, on a certain level, we will also be responsible for the choices we make, because we develop a taste and then we actively choose to eat it. So we become covered by that mode and then we start choosing it. Even when people see that animals are being killed right before their eyes, it does not touch their heart, because they have become insensitive to because of eating regularly. So these things are very complicated. However, the simple principle is our choices will always bear results, and we will be held responsible for the active choices that we make. Whatever may be the reason, the choices we make, will be responsible for that.
Do you think that as more and more we make better choices and we chant and we work toward purifying the soul and devotion to Krishna lifetime after lifetime, do you think like every time that we come back, if we're leading that way, that our memories are better? Like some people are born just so sattvic, or at least from a very young age, or on the Krishna path already, Krishna conscious path. Do you think as we purify ourselves, even if we do have to come back, because we do have to burn off some karma, right? Work off some karma. Do you think every lifetime, if we're living that as best as we can, sattvic life, we'll just come back with more memory in the sense of just getting into that Krishna conscious mode faster than, for example, me coming into it later in life? Not that I was bad before it. I was in the mode of ignorance quite a bit.
In the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, I have this favorite section towards the end of the chapter. There Krishna clearly says that anyone who has done good in life, they'll never be lost. And whatever choices they have made, like whatever spiritual advancement they have made, will be preserved. And he says, even without seeking, it will naturally come. That consciousness will naturally come to this person, he says. Even without actively seeking, they will be that person who's naturally interested in spiritual things. It will come naturally to them, he says. Yeah, Prabhupada also, famous words that Prabhupada always quoted, Neha, that the investment, even if it is a little investment in bhakti, it never is lost and can always save one from the greatest danger. So yes,
thank you.
In spiritual life, we say it is failure proof and it is also future proof.
Thank you. And you just quoted from chapter 6, right? The
Yes,
before?
this chapter 6 from verses, I would say 35 to 45,
Okay.
36 to 45. That section is that it speaks about that theme.
Thank you so much. And I've taken
Thank
up
you.
enough
Thank
time, so
you.
sorry.
No, thank you very much. Thank you for coming. Mother Indra?
You know what? It's not an important question. Thank you.
Yes, your voice is breaking.
Also ignorant.
Your
is what
voice
I
is
was-
breaking.
Sorry, 1 second.
Is it just for me?
No, it's breaking even for me.
You're frozen, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu, now I can hear you.
Yeah, sorry, Prabhu. It was cutting out because of walking. No, yeah, I was saying that the concept of doom scrolling on the phone, because you mentioned phone a couple of times, I was thinking that also might come under the category of ignorance,
Yeah,
mode of ignorance.
it just puts you into a daze at the end, actually. So we're all products of our times also, the immediate circumstances that we live. People who lived and died before 20 years would never have that problem. They might have had something else. But now the material civilization, the advancement of civilization has facilitated us to fall into mode of ignorance and passion much easier. Our path to downward spiral is like made easier by these technological advancements. So when we deal with it, we have to take personal care and we have to be alert. There is no, oh, I'm a spiritual person, so I can just casually get into it. So then we see accidents. So it's after a while you realize, oh my God, where did I develop this attitude from? Okay, that's by interacting with these things and these people. So we all have to be conscious. There is no other way. So the
Thank you,
reflection, thank you, bro. The reflection for the section could be like, do we live more for short-term comfort or for long-term freedom or evolution of consciousness? And also, we don't rise to our hopes. I wish I was a Krishna conscious person is different from being a Krishna conscious person. Me hoping that I'll be a very Krishna conscious person and how that would be wonderful and how that would be amazing one day that I could be a Krishna conscious person is very different from being that person. So we don't just always rise to our hopes, we fall to our habits. I might go and pray to the deities thinking, oh, please make me Krishna conscious. And we may even have a desire that I wish I was so Krishna conscious and so spiritual and so advanced. But if our habits are like really on the other spectrum, then we need to actually, what we need to focus is on the habits, how to bring them towards the spectrum of mode of goodness and more conducive to spiritual life. That is real surrender. And that can actually make that hope into a reality one day of wanting to be very Krishna conscious. Thank you. I'm speaking too much. And this is the last from Prabhupada, that there is an opportunity for men in the mode of, and women in the modes of ignorance and passion to be elevated to the mode of goodness. And that system is called Krishna consciousness. So that we're all in the modes of passion and ignorance, and we can be elevated to the mode of goodness. And that's just a byproduct of practicing bhakti. We all have that opportunity, and we side by side develop goodness, make right choices, and also practice bhakti. By the influence of the practice bhakti, our attraction towards mode of goodness will become very natural. It will just become a natural thing. Now I have to choose it. Now I have to think, oh, sleeping late is bad, so I need to sleep early. And also, or like waking up early is a good thing, so I need to now force myself. But once we come to a certain level of Krishna conscious and our consciousness gets purified, it just becomes our natural thing. We cannot think of doing it other way. So thank you. Appreciate all of your time and attention. And next week we'll continue from verses 19 onwards. Thank you so much for joining.